Make room for Javi.
Welcome to my Project a Day video, where I explain a project or tell a story each day for a year, and I attempt to complete my shop. Tonight we'll talk about my buddy Lazaro. In the late 80s, I was part of a young adult group and a group of friends who shared a lot of wonderful experiences. One of those friends was my buddy Lazaro. As I mentioned in past stories, I had not fully ripened as an adult until my 30s, and as a result, my 20s were fraught with immaturity and pure desires with no thought or consequences to my future. Don't get me wrong. I never did any drugs or got into any legal troubles. It was just plain irresponsibility and childishness, along with following my whims. While I was incredibly immature for my age, I regret nothing. I had my good times with my high school friends, but after high school, while many of my friends were taking college seriously and planning for their future, my focus was more on the fun side of life. I would hang out with my buddy Lazaro and a few others, and we would do stupid high school things in my early 20s. He had his dad's Bronco, and I had my 76 Fuddpucker Green Monte Carlo. I was blessed with intelligence beyond my years, but as in Dungeons & Dragons, you get so many character points to distribute, and I had to sacrifice maturity for intelligence. As a result, I could take a car apart and put it back together practically blindfolded, but I lacked the responsibility to keep the car in one piece. We found that we could rev the car in neutral and drop it into drive. This is an automatic transmission, mind you. And the tires would peel out. Luckily, we had a couple of friends who rebuilt transmissions. We eventually learned that you do this once or twice and you pay the price. So we learned to power brake. Power braking is pressing the brake and the accelerator at the same time. Not recommended in the slightest. Lazaro and I had fun doing this all the time, but when I had to spend a week's worth of salary on a new set of tires in less than 2 weeks' time, it got old quick. But then we turned to radios. Now back in those days, Jensen, Alpine, and Blaupunkt were the quality radios of choice. Most cars didn't have the wiring harnesses, and installing radios was quite easy for me. We didn't have YouTube or manuals to tell us how to swap a factory radio, and most of my friends got stuck when the colors were not standardized, or when the car was 4 or 6 speaker system as opposed to the standard 2 back then. Likewise, there were grounded and floating ground radios. Lazaro had a friend who would obtain radios, and I'd always either do a favor or make a quick buck by installing the radios. I was a bit naive, so I assumed every radio was legit, and I was always told that they purchased them at a flea market, and that's why the wires were cut. But I wised up after a time, and my installation days were short-lived. Lazaro and I bought bigger and bigger woofers and amps to go with our high-end radios, and that's likely why I have trouble hearing in crowds today. Like most boys, we had our girlfriends with respectable parents, and thus we would leave at a respectable time between 11 and 1 a.m. Our respective others would go to sleep, and Lazaro and I would often meet up for evenings at Denny's or driving around or just hanging out until the early morning hours at each other's houses. While I can't remember much about those days, I certainly remember that it was always fun. And we drifted apart as single friends do when our relationships became more serious, and we each moved on with our lives. I found out years later that Lazaro and his wife lived within a mile of where I lived in Miami. I regret not meeting up with him and intend to touch base and catch up for old time's sake, but about the time I found out where he lived, it was 2017, and I was already looking for properties up here. Lazaro, if you're out there, reach out to me and I'll send you my contact info and catch up. While we can never go back, and I wouldn't want to, I would not mind reminiscing for quite a bit. Thank you for watching. Feel free to comment. I enjoy reading them, particularly when they're pleasant. Please subscribe, and as always, have a great day.
Make room for Javi.